This is so fun. I'm seeing people I know, and I love that your cameras are on. Thank you. That makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself, which is so great. And I love seeing everyone's face without a mask. So that is the benefit of doing it over Zoom tonight, is I will actually get to see your faces. Okay, we're gonna get this party started. Welcome, welcome. I know this is a sacrifice, and there's never a good time to, like, kids are going to bed at 8 o'clock. This should be your like alone self-care time, and yet you're choosing to be here, and I am so grateful. And I really want you to know that this is for you guys and for your families. I always learn a lot preparing for these sort of things. I'm also a mom, and I feel like I did this parent to parent. So here we go. My name is Katie Mangus. I know many of you. I love and adore all of you. And I'm an occupational therapist. I put my email at the bottom. So if anyone has any questions, we can go back to this as well, but these slides will be available as well later on, and they are recording this. So keep that in mind if you're not comfortable with being recorded. Actually, I don't even know if it'll show you guys, but it is going to be recorded so people can watch it later. So here's a little bit about me. I am a pediatric occupational therapist. I've been doing it for 10 years. I work in charter schools, which I love. I have the dream job. And my dream as an occupational therapist is to one day get into the curriculum, into the charters of the schools, to teach what we're going to talk about tonight, to have it part of the curriculum, which is self-regulation, and also to implement motor labs into schools to help get ready bodies so they can have learning minds, which at George Washington Academy, we are currently working on both of these dreams. So that is so great. I should explain, in case anyone isn't familiar with what an occupational therapist is. I don't help people find jobs, even though the name will make you think I do. How occupational therapy relates to children, particularly in schools, is anything that occupies their time. So they're like daily occupations of being a student. So I specialize in like fine motor, gross motor, sensory self-regulation, and I do a lot of collaborating with teachers on behavior and sensory strategies in the classroom. That's what an occupational therapist is in the classroom. I absolutely love and am obsessed with Positive Discipline by Dr. Jane Nelson. I'm a certified positive discipline parent educator. I love working, well, and the reason why I am obsessed with that is because I am also a parent, and I feel like it's a 2-for-1 for me. I get to learn for my work and my students, and also for my own kiddos in my life and at home. So we're going to be incorporating some of those principles into this. I love working with teachers and parents. I love my students, and I love dried mangoes and watching movie previews. And this is my family, my husband Van, my daughter Violet, and my son Leo. So our goals for today are to understand the sensory systems. We're going to teach a self-regulation model, and then I'm going to provide you with hopefully understanding and specific tools to help improve everyday self-regulation issues. And because I'm an occupational therapist, also known as an OT, we're going to be incorporating a lot of sensory strategies with that. So this approach tonight is very OT-based approach. I have the privilege of working with the school counselor and the social worker at George Washington Academy, who have also been doing parent nights, and they are amazing, and they come at it at a little different take, and you're going to see that tonight we're going to come from an OT standpoint, more of the actual motor movement and the tools to do that, and sensory, lots of sensory. So another goal is that you will recognize this is the goal I write for my students a lot, that they will be able to recognize which zone they're in, choose and participate in a tool to help them get back into the green zone. The green zone is part of the self-regulation model. I'm going to talk a lot about, you'll come to understand more what that means. But ultimately, green zone means you're doing okay, feeling calm, you're in control. Doesn't mean that you're doing exactly what you want to be doing, but you are in control. And I can see just, by looking at the screens of many people here, you're in the green zone. Maybe you'd rather be watching, Netflix or whatever. It's not that you're doing exactly what you want to be doing, but you're in the green zone and you're able to participate. Okay, let's start with some sensory. And I wish you could just call these out, but feel free to type them in the message or unmute yourself if you want to. That would be fun, because we're going to talk about the body senses. The most obvious ones are, shoot, these were supposed to come out one at a time. You got all the answers right away. My mistake. Okay, the most obvious body senses that we teach our children and that we're all familiar with are vision, taste, smell, touch, and hearing. Enough said. The three that I really want to talk about today, and it's important to understand what these are because it affects our ability to be in the green zone. And it particularly affects our kiddos and our students who have a problem with self-regulation. So the first one is proprioception. So we're going to go into each one of these. We're going to go into proprioception, we're going to go into vestibular, and then interoception. So here's proprioception. I want you to think of proprioception as your body's awareness. Your body knows where your hands and arms are in space without even looking. So it's processed through your joint receptors. So every time that you get input to those joints, to those muscles and ligaments and tendons, it sends a message to your brain and says, this is where I am in space. So when you wake up in the middle of the night and you go to the bathroom and it's totally dark and you know right where to just reach up and turn on that light without seeing it, that's your proprioceptive sense telling you where things are in space. So this is a really important part of having coordinated movements. Now, we're not going to get into sensory processing disorder, but when any of my students have sensory processing disorder, you can imagine that these body senses, being able to take this information in and form an appropriate response, is not going smoothly. There's some difficulty there. Either they're getting too much of a response or not enough of a response. So I'm going to have you do a little quick activity so you really understand what proprioception is. I want you to touch the tip of your finger with your nose with one hand and stick your hand up with your other hand. And then I want you, without looking at this other hand that's just up here, I want you to reach up and touch the tip of your pointer finger and find it. Oh my gosh, someone was really good at that I just saw. I'm always like, oh, there it is. Okay, it takes me a second, and maybe you felt it too, to like reach up and be like, oh gosh, there it is. Now, that was without extra proprioceptive input. I want you to try it again, switch hands or whatever you want to do. But this time, I want you to be like scrunching your hand. You're sending that message to your brain. This is where I am. So now you have your hand up, and now I go right to it. Well, I shouldn't have gave the answer away. Did you guys feel like that? Could you much easier find where it was? Okay, I'm getting some nods. That's because you sent that message to your brain. You gave it movement. You gave it proprioceptive input. So you felt more like you knew exactly where that was. So proprioceptive activities, it helps us to know our body awareness. I like to just use the word body awareness in place of proprioception. So activities that help increase your proprioceptive input and help you know where your body is in space. These are all great examples of things to give you that input. In the OT world, we use the word heavy work a lot. So heavy work is any time that I'm getting input to those joints, getting that pressure. So pushing, pulling, carrying, using weighted options. That's why you see kids with a weighted lap pad or a weighted vest or weighted stuffed animals. This is a picture of the therapy ball pushing hard on the student to give them that deep pressure, that proprioceptive input. Trampoline, they're getting the pressure of bouncing, yoga, or a body sock. Okay, now moving on to vestibular. So this,
Katie?
Yes.
Someone had a question. They want to know, what is a body sock?
Great question. This is a body sock. You can Google it, but a body sock pretty much is just like this tight fabric that is made out of like swimsuit material, lycra, I think that it is. And so it gives them like deep pressure and they push on it and it's almost too small for them. And so it's like having compression. And they have like compression shirts and compression pants. Maybe you're familiar with those for running and such. It's almost like a compression whole body sock. So it gives that deep pressure that they're searching for, and it can be very calming. Thank you for stopping me, and thank you for asking questions, because on my screen, I don't see any messages. So Anjanae, thank you, keep it up. Vestibular, I want you to think of your inner ear. You have 3 semicircular canals in your inner ear, and every time that you move your head, there's little tiny crystals moving in your inner ear, and it's telling your body, I'm moving forward, I'm moving backward, I'm spinning, I'm upside down. It tells your brain those things. That is your vestibular sense. You can think of it as your balance and your motion, okay? I'm laughing already to myself because like it changes when you get older, right? I used to love roller coasters and now I can't handle that. But again, this is important to understanding how we're going to calm, how we're going to get into the green zone, how do we get the input that we're needing. It's going to look different for me than it is for my son, my 5-year-old son, who is very much a sensory seeker and who needs a lot of proprioceptive and vestibular input to feel calm and regulated. And so ways to get vestibular input are bouncing on a ball, using a scooter board, going on a swing, animal walks, jumping on a tramp. I like to talk fast, so if I'm going too fast, please let me know. So the next sense is called Introspection. Now this is something that is really, the research is just coming out more and more on the last few years. But I love it because I think it's critical. I want you to think of your introspection as all the internal messages that your body is trying to tell your brain. So it's telling me that I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, or I'm nauseous. If we have to go to the bathroom, it's what gives us like the sex arousal thoughts. And we feel our emotions through our body, and it helps us to know what zone we are in. So these are so interconnected to emotional regulation, because when we don't understand that my hands may be being clammy or I'm getting sweaty, oh, you know, I'm nervous, or I've got a knot in my stomach, I'm anxious. All of these different things manifest as ways to teach us which zone we're in and how we're actually feeling. So a lot of times this is an area that is really critical to get help our students and our kids be able to recognize and process, so that they can then do higher level skills. Because when they're not able to recognize that they need to go to the bathroom or that they're hungry, and then we try to ask them to do these higher level cognitive school skills, we're jumping too far ahead. So we need to keep working on the mindfulness and the sensory type therapy, occupational therapy type stuff, a lot of motor movement, helping them be able to take in the sensory information and form an appropriate response. So with introspection, for instance, if we can learn to recognize our body cues and what it's telling us, then it can help us know, like, oh my gosh, I need to take deep breaths and do like some muscle relaxation so that I cannot be so anxious. Or, oh my gosh, I am totally in the yellow zone because I'm hangry and I haven't eaten. So it all comes into play. So why do we care about sensory self-regulation? Because it organizes our body system. It helps us learn by paying attention. To think about coming to a class like this or going to school all day, our brain cannot focus if our body is not able to even, well, and that's not true, not sit still. I don't believe in having to sit still. I totally believe in having movement while we're learning, which is another talk. But it helps us to be able to even pay attention, because if I'm so worried about the knot in my stomach, or that I'm hungry or thirsty, or that I'm needing movement or input, I'm not able to focus and give eye-to-eye contact to move on with something. Helps us interact with the environment, and it helps us to act appropriately in social settings. So it brings in all those things. So self-regulation, it's the goal. And that's the ability to attain, maintain, and change your level of alertness. Again, we're going to talk about the different levels: blue, green, yellow, and red. And what's so cool that I've learned at another research symposium that I went to is that there's research out there that says that kiddos aren't able to truly self-recognize and fill their own needs until they're 8 years old. 8 years old. What I mean by that is they can't be like, oh, I'm feeling very frustrated and I think that I will take a cool down break and go write in my journal to feel better about it. until they're 8 years old. Like we can't expect that until they're at least 8 years old. And that's if they're like neurotypical development. And if they're even a little delayed, you can imagine a little older. So what I'm offering to you is that we need to hold their hands. We need to provide them with these models. We need to help them along a lot before they're 8 years old, and even when they're 8 years old. But this is not something that they should be able to get and do all by themselves. This is something that we need to keep helping provide structure and encouragement over. And the best way to do it is to model it, show them what it looks like, show them how you are recognizing how you're feeling and how you are changing it and how you are using these tools yourself. So there are many different ways to teach self-regulation. And I've used many different ways over the years. And so by all means, there's not one right way. I happen to really love the zones of regulation. It's a curriculum developed by an occupational therapist. There's also one called How Does Your Engine Run? By another occupational therapist that uses cars. I feel like it's better for preschool, kindergarten age, using social stories or break books for simplicity's purposes. And because at George Washington Academy, the two that are used there are the zones of regulation, which is the one that I use the most. And I work a lot with students who have a hard time understanding which facial features equal which emotions. So I like having these types of real life pictures so that they can really see them and we can practice those emotions. So in the zones, green zone is the goal, happy, calm, I'm ready to learn. Yellow zone, I love how there's this differentiation between the yellow zone and the red zone, because the yellow zone is when I'm starting to get a little out of control, but red zone is like, I'm gone, I'm out of control. Yellow zone is that space between that for me personally, like if there's any zone besides the green zone that I struggle with, man, it's that yellow zone, feeling anxious or worried or overwhelmed. Red zone, that is when we are no longer thinking clearly and we're out of control. It can be for good or for bad. That elated, out of control, I'm going to Disneyland, screaming, running into things. I'll often show like a little clip from Elf when he's like, Santa! And he's screaming and so excited. That is getting all the way worked up. Or the blue zone, that's a slow moving, sick, sad, or tired, bored zone. At GWA, the social emotional team uses this book called Permission to Feel. Awesome, same ideas, same colors, different program, but same concepts. So if you recognize that from their school, that's very similar and very focused on the different feelings and recognizing the emotion, expressing it. Again, for our purposes tonight, I'm going to be using the zones of regulation. So how do you incorporate this at home? How do you teach your kids? I love the quote by Plato, which is, dang it, now I'm going to forget. My sister's on this call. She knows it. She knows it too. It's the beginning of knowledge is the definition of terms, something like that. Pretty much saying what we need to know is the same verbiage, the same language, so that you and I and our kids and our husbands and our wives can all be on the same page when we're talking about it. So it's so important to understand these and have language to even talk about it. First of all, I love it because it takes away so much of the shame or the worry about saying the wrong thing, like you're out of control. Looks like you're feeling in the red zone. You know, it gives these languages that isn't using it as a punishment or a reward. So ways to help teach this. At the end, I have a list of resources for these different websites. They have free visuals you can use. I love to have the student draw their own visual of them or whatever they're into, of the different colors. I love playing games with my students where we act them out. I think it's really important that they have to feel it and try to act it out. And so, you know, I will try to act it out for them, and I'll get in the blue zone and I'll try to have them figure it out, you know, and then I have them try it out and they try the different zones. And it's amazing to see how difficult it is sometimes to recognize the difference between the different zones. So when they actually feel it and act it out, that helps. I've done this for family time with my kids at home, acting it out, playing charades, make it fun and have the different colors. I like to actually use the language of labeling the zones a lot. And recommendation is for you to be an example of the zones. And so many times and examples where I'm like, Mom's in the red zone. I'm gonna go to my room and take a cool down, and then I'll be back. And then, I go to my room and shut the door. Little fingers come under the door. They won't even leave me alone to be in the red zone, right? But then when I'm ready, I come back out and I try to model and say, okay, I did, such and such. I took deep breaths, or I listened to my cool down song. I took a shower, whatever it is. And now I'm back in the green zone, modeling it. And then if you are going to try this with your kiddos, I strongly encourage you to help them recognize what it feels like to be in the green zone. No one wants to be told that they're in any other zone besides the green zone, really. So if you start with just really helping them see, like, wow, it looks like, Andy, that you're in the green zone because you're looking up at me and you're in control of your body. I can tell that you're in the green zone right now, and then helping them understand what that looks like through modeling. Okay, another interactive experience, everybody. This is one of my favorite things. It's by Dr. Daniel Siegel. It's called Brain in the Palm of Your Hand. This helps me to really understand about getting in that red zone, okay? So you're gonna put up your hand and you're gonna wrap your thumb right here. And I want you to imagine this is your brain. This is your brain stem right here, okay? Brain stem, brain. This here, the thumb going across, that's your limbic system. That's your amygdala. You can think of it as like your reptilian brain, your emotions. This is the area of your brain. They call it reptilian because you're not thinking clearly. You're just like instinct and act reactive, kind of high emotion, okay? Now you're gonna close your fingers over that because that's deep inside the middle of the brain. And then this right here is right here. This is your prefrontal cortex. This is your executive functioning. This is where your higher level thinking comes, okay? So we're our best selves when we're able to really think here and not be fully exposed just purely in the amygdala. But what happens is that when we get upset and we get into that red zone, I love using this language of, he calls it flipping your lid. So what happens is I get overstimulated, I get into the yellow, and I get into the red zone, I flip my lid. So flip open your lid, and now here I am, but I'm no longer protected by that thinking right there. I am exposed, fully exposed and reactive in the red zone, not able to be my best self. Well, the really tricky and quite terrible thing is that, well, so let's say this is me and then this is my child or my husband. Well, what happens is if I'm in this flipped lid zone, the mirror neurons in our brains like to talk to each other and they like to be like each other, and so they go flip. So now you have two people or more, if your kids and your spouse or whoever is getting involved, then you're trying to come at things right here. And it's not a good place to try to work things out because you're not thinking with your lid closed. You're not able to really come to a solution or brainstorm anything. You're just in that flipped lid state, and it makes for two people in the red zone. So often I use the verbiage about having a flipped lid and being able to close our lid and separate, and then we can come back together at a different time when we will be able to think and talk in the green zone. So, any questions on that? One way to offer choices and to help with knowing how to get from these different zones back into the green zone is by using visuals. I love visuals because what happens is that when we're in the green zone, that's when we make these visuals. It's when we're calm and in control. We make these visuals so that when we do get a flipped lid, we do get in the red zone, we don't have to think clearly about anything. We already thought it through when we were in the green zone and thinking clearly. So I wanted to give you a real life example. This is my wheel of choice. So wheel of choice is where you brainstorm with your child possible solutions to when you're not in when you're not in the green zone. How am I going to get out of feeling upset? A lot of times you can have an anger wheel of choice and then even just a regular wheel of choice. But this is a positive discipline principle where you use a pie-shaped chart and you fill it in, and then you have these choices. You can even have them spin it if they want to. But we're not talking Pinteresty here, which is why I wanted to show you my wheel of choice and how simple, and how we sat down and I did it with my kids. You can see they helped on part of it. You would think that my child drew all those, but that was actually me. Those are my drawings. So for instance, mom's wheel of choice, because I'm trying to model and I'm trying to learn, are ways that help me get back into the green zone. And so there has been more than 1 or 5 or 10 times when my kids, especially my daughter, will be like, Mom, I think you should use your wheel of choice. So she does it back to me and I say, yes, I will. And then I go and I try to use something on my wheel of choice and calm to come back to the green zone, and then again, talk it through. So I'm going to show you a lot of examples of wheels of choices and things to put on them. Now, I have a friend who we talked this through. I helped her get the wheel of choice, and she's like, my son now hates his wheel of choice because just this whole concept of wheel of choice. So we have to adapt. And point being, to keep in mind is very, very important that your child is the one who chooses the options for the wheel of choice. They need to do it because they need to be in charge, and the author and the person who is making the decisions around here about it. And then I love the 2 words, you choose. So when you can see that they're starting to feel a little in the blue or the yellow zone, it's a happy type situation where it's like, would you like to use your wheel of choice? You choose. You get to choose whatever's on there. So my daughter, we've done wheel of choice for a couple of years, and she's 8 now, and she doesn't like that idea anymore. So she had the idea of taking actual pictures of all the things that help her get back into the green zone. And she scrapbooked this whole book and she put her pictures so that now she has her visuals. Now she's getting better at this in terms of she doesn't always have to even look at them anymore, because she's looked at them so many more times that she knows more of what will help her to change how she's feeling. So for instance, like this picture of a phone, those are her recorded affirmations that she'll do, or her snack reading. I love the tramp because it's that proprioceptive and vestibular input, listening to music. Those are all things that she came up with, and now she chooses. Now, there will definitely be times when she's like, I don't want, she's already in the red zone. She says, I don't want to use my choices. That is when we get to stay calm and kind and say, okay, well, I am going to go use my wheel of choice. You separate yourself and use your own wheel of choice and come back when you're in the green zone. And often they will follow your lead, or they just need some alone time a lot of times as well.
Katie?
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Miss Ann Hatch. Ask anything.
I was wondering, what if the child, because I can see my kids doing the same thing that you were just saying Violet does, where sometimes she'll say or any kid would say, like, I don't want to do my wheel of choice or whatever, because their lids are flipped and they're not even in the right frame of mind. So, and you had said maybe, we can be the one to step away and whatever. But what we find happens a lot is that when the child is having like a meltdown at any age,
yes,
and the family is there, like, let's say we're trying to have dinner or something, like what happened tonight with us.
Yes.
And one child is like having a very, very loud meltdown, and we invite them to go into a different room to have their meltdown, but they won't. Sorry, this was just very recent tonight.
This sounds like this could have happened to you recently. Yes,
it was very recent.
Sounds like my dinner tonight.
Yeah. Can we all relate to that?
Wait, what? This happens to other people? No, but anyway, so that's what I'm wondering is, if they refuse to use any of their tools, their wheel of choice, whatever, and refuse to go somewhere else, then it's like, we're not going to move the whole family dinner to a different room. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So
yes.
anyway, that's where I'm not sure what to do.
Yes, and thank you so much for that comment, Anne, because it is a different monster when you come at it of they are the ones who already chose these and they felt like they had the power and the authority to choose these choices. And if we get nitty gritty, I even have ones for students sitting right here where it's not just like one wheel of choice, but it's like we make specific ones for sitting on the rug. And then they have 3 ones that are really specific to sitting on the rug, or maybe like dinner, things that might help him specifically at dinner. So I think in that way, try this and see how, giving them the choices and letting them choose something that they want to do already, see how that goes. Also, positive discipline principle is I can only control myself and I can't control you. And so I will choose what I will do. And so if you can let him like have a quiet moment before then, when you're both in the green zone, in the morning or night or whatever, and be like, let's come up with some solutions. What do you think that we should do when this happens at dinner and we're all there? It's amazing to hear what the kids will come up with themselves for their ideas of what they think can happen or should happen. So those are a couple ideas. That's really hard. And it's really hard when you're tantruming and you're like, I'm trying not to pull you up by your arm and leg and take you to your room, but literally it's like, how else do I get you to a cool down space so that you'll relax? We ended up buying a weighted lap pad blanket that's like got 5 pounds of weight in it and like soft things to try to put on my son's lap when he's starting to get really upset. But for sure he will punch us or get really upset, and we definitely have to clear the room or help him calm or do things, and it's not easy. So my heart is with you. And Colette, you had a question?
So would you try to do the wheel of choice when you're in the yellow zone? Like, is that more ideal?
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's the dream. That's the ideal, is that we do it when we're in the yellow zone before we get to that total flip lid state. So that we don't get to the kicking, screaming, hitting you, I'm out of control in an ideal world. Yes. And so also keep in mind, this is a compound effect. So it's like dinner time, we're all hungry, we're all tired. What can we do? Like, and I know for my son, I have started just feeding him dinner before everyone else, because he gets in the red zone at dinner time when he's supposed to be sitting there. And so I let him, like, he sits up at the bar and will eat pretty much the food. He'll eat a lot before dinner, because I know that will help him not get into the red zone, because when he gets too tired and hungry, then I know he will flip his lid. Did you have another comment, Colette, and I cut you off? No? Okay. But yes, so it's a compound effect, not just for them, but for us, particularly for us, is that because in all of this, I want you to be thinking of yourself, not just your kids or your students that you work with. Think of yourself and how you move through these zones every day and what you do to calm and regulate every day. And if I'm having a difficult time and I'm more in the yellow zone throughout the day, and then my child, I don't know, I was trying to think of an example of today, but like we're at the grocery store and they're fighting over donuts, then I'm like, much easier to flip my lid and go right into the red zone, versus if I am checking in with myself and I'm trying to stay in the green zone as much as possible throughout the day, I don't flip my lid and go into the red zone as easy. In parenting, same principle for the kids. If they have had self-regulation type sensory calming mindful activities throughout the day, they will be less likely to get in the red zone. So another thing that I love in your visuals or choices is to have a designated cool down spot. Positive discipline calls this a positive timeout. They don't believe in timeout. It's all about having a safe and comfortable space. This happened to be a Lego table that was, you can see my son's a few years younger in this picture, but it was his cool down spot to go use his Legos. This was not at nighttime, but obviously you can see he went to his cool down spot and fell asleep because he was in the red zone. He was obviously very tired, went to his cool down spot and fell right asleep. So this is a really important part for all of us, I feel like, because Jay Nelson teaches, where do we ever get the crazy idea that to make children do better, first we make them feel worse? So if they're in the red zone, I'm telling you, they're not feeling good. Oh my gosh, it makes me cry because a misbehaving child is a discouraged child, as Jay Nelson teaches. And a misbehaving mom is a discouraged mom, I'll tell you that for sure. That when I am feeling discouraged and in the blue zone or in the yellow or red zone, I am not, it doesn't help me for someone to yell at me or take away privileges or do something that I get even more upset. What I need is to cool down and go to a safe, calm place and go into my room and have or take a shower or my things that are calming to me. So that's what the cool down spot is. It's those moments when you think that you want to be mad or punish them, but in reality, they need to feel better so that they can do better. So a cool down spot is a safe, quiet, alone place where they can do that. We have a tent in my basement. It has little twinkle lights. It has pillows and books. They can take any food in there they want, but it's just that safe place that you can go to the tent. My kids made a fort in my front room right now. It's driving us a little crazy because it's been there for so long, but I'm like, this has been such a good cool down spot. I don't want to take this fort away. I've seen it happen multiple times this week where they will go into the cool down spot and there's art. I mean, this fort has gotten out of control. There's art supplies and everything you think of in there, but it's awesome because it's a place to go get back in the green zone. Any questions or comments? Speak up if there are. I love you guys talking and helping add input and questions. So thank you.
Katie, sorry,
Yes.
I got another one.
And let's hear it.
Sorry. I have 1,000 questions, I mean a million about parenting. Just the cool down spot. I have a child who feels like anytime we make him be alone, that is a punishment in and of itself. And so how do we, like, because even if we designate a special spot with comforting things and activities or anything, like, what do you do for those kids who see being sent away, like, even if we're just saying we just need you to cool down, just have a little time or whatever, see it as like the end of the world, like it's they have to be with people in order to feel better or whatever.
There's an awesome book by Jay Nelson called Jared's Cool Out Space, and it goes through the story of this boy Jared making his cool out or space out. Anyway, he decorates it like outer space and has all this stuff. That might be something interesting to read with him, or doing some sort of social story where you explain really explicitly what it is. And again, it's really critical that he is a part of deciding this space. Same as with the wheel of choice, the cool down space needs to not be your idea, but the kid's idea of what it's going to look like and where it's going to be and what it's going to have in it, so that he feels like it is things he likes to do and it is calming for him. And I think this repetitive understanding of this is not a punishment, it's not a reward, this is just a part of our daily routine. Maybe if he even could have it as part of his routine, like maybe you read books there together before you go to bed, or maybe you do have special times when you are there together. And so it really becomes a place that he wants to go. But we can talk more later about him, because he sounds like he is an energy that is very social and wants to be with other people. And so that is another strategy. There's other things we could talk about in the realm of positive discipline, about like planning special time with him. You're like every night at 7:15 to 7:30, that's going to be our special time. I'm really looking forward to that. And then he knows he'll have that special time later. Maybe he could cool off without anyone there. Thanks, Anne. Okay, here's 5 ways to change what zone you're in, just general ways as you're brainstorming and thinking of things for yourself and for your kiddos. Put putting something in your mouth. Your temporomandibular joint gets a ton of proprioceptive input. Reach up and feel right there, right where that joint is. You'll feel a little zing. That's because it gets so much input. So like chewing, like dried mangoes, one reason why I love them so much, gives me so much input to that joint. Drinking through a straw, chewing. This is one reason why kids love to chew through their shirts. My son just chews through a shirt. Tonight was chewing through a shirt. But by giving them some other way to get that oral motor input, like gum or a cold drink or chewy bagel bites or whatever. The second way, and my most favorite way, is to move your body and get that vestibular and proprioceptive input. So many ways to do that. And if you think of yourself as an adult, how do you get back in the high? I have to exercise to get regulated, or I get movement in some way. It never ends, that need to move. The third is to touch. Fidgets. I love putting Velcro under kids' desks. Rings that spin, and it's particularly things that are really more natural in the environment. My son loves soft things, so like a soft puppet he keeps in his backpack, or a blanket or a lap pad really helps him. Looking, so visual input. So depend on the person, either more or less input. I love those little water and oil toys, like fish tanks sort of thing. Listening to music, or also like blocking out noise or using white noise. Here we have Tools to Grow OT, which is one of my favorite websites for resources as a pediatric therapist. But I wanted to show you guys these so that you could kind of get some ideas of ways to get back in the green zone. I've got 3 slides of these, so keep that in mind. There is a lot, but you can see in each one of these examples, they're getting some form of that sensory input that we've been talking about: vestibular, proprioception, tactile, auditory, different ways. So different kiddos will have different things that help them to calm. And I love offering them all these choices, and then they get to choose and pick for themselves what will help them most. So they're pretty self-explanatory. Here's a whole nother one of them. Doing yoga, pushing your hands together, pulling them apart, deep breathing, using a weighted blanket. I love blanket burritos. You wrap them up tight in the blanket, give them squishes. Joint compressions, that's when you take either side of their joint and you give them little squishes. It's almost like a massage. Giving hugs. I love hugs. I think hugs are invaluable. So many times when a child is in the yellow zone, even just asking or saying, I need a hug, they will give you a hug, and it helps to calm. There's that body sock again. The last page is all things we've kind of talked about: using putty, water table, chewy toys, blowing bubbles, chewing gum, listening to music. Now, I love when kids make their own visuals, or it's so easy nowadays to just go on Google Images and type what you want. You can also email me and I can get you resources of pictures, or you can go on Tools to Grow OT and get these there. You have to buy these, but it comes in a full sensory diet, which is amazing. I love taking pictures of the kids. They love that. They relate to that so much, and seeing themselves actually doing that is one of my favorite ways. So I just wanted to again mention how important movement is, because the areas of the brain that are in charge of movement are also in charge of cognition and attention span, and we have to move to learn. There's so much research out there that use movement as ADHD medication and how it increases the happy mood chemicals in our brain, like dopamine and serotonin. And it really, if you don't know what to do for yourself or for your child, think movement. And an OT phrase is, when in doubt, probe it out, which means proprioceptive input. So do that heavy work. if you're not sure what to do, I just put pictures of us like going on a walk. My kids love to climb trees or climbing up the mountain. Like these are all ways to get a lot of that work that they're needing. In the schools, I will often have them be in charge of pushing the heavy basket full of all the PE supplies or putting something heavy in their backpack, giving them that added input, having them push someone in a laundry bin down the hallway at the house. These are all ways to get more of that input to their joints that can be so calming and regulating. You can either get it through active movement or you can get that same type of proprioceptive input through passive movement, and that's where someone else helps you. And that might be something like Anne, how you mentioned, like he gets really overstimulated. Would he respond to like a hand massage or deep pressure through his shoulders or like a weighted lap pad? Or I love weighted stuffed animals. Don't let your kids see you do it, but you just like cut a slit in the throat of the stuffed animal, pull out the stuffing, fill it full of beans or rice, or even better, poly pellets, stitch it back up, and then you've got this weighted stuffed animal that now they're carrying around or playing games with, and it gives them that heavy work, that input that they're looking for. Any questions, comments? We're almost done, so we're going to leave a couple minutes for questions at the end. So please be thinking, I guess. Through all of this, I want you to start with yourself. Think within, because when you're a parent and you're in the green zone, then you can be your best self and you can remember the parenting strategies that you already know, and you typically know what to do. It's those things that get in the way that make it so hard to be our best self and to be our best parent. And so I wanted this conversation tonight to be about having a green zone summer, because the summer can be totally overwhelming to have your kids at home all day and to try to be thinking of activities or things to do and how to help them stay regulated and not just constantly needing to numb out or turn to a screen in order to get back into the green zone is the reality. So if we can be conscious creators in modeling this and in doing it for ourselves, then we can then be in the green zone, so we can be calm and encouraging and be prepared and have these quiet moments where we can talk through these ideas and really get the input from our kids. They are so smart and they know what they like and they know what they're into and they know what will help them. And so if we can be that helping hand that offers them the visuals and puts them on the wall and helps them. They love to create these safe places. They love to create these visuals. They love to have pictures taken of themselves. They love to be in charge. Put them in charge and help them and encourage them and let them have crazy ideas of things and try it. Encourage and model, and then encourage and model some more. And so you can say self-reflective things to them like, wow, it really looks like you're in the green zone and that this helped. I love seeing that work, or any way that you can let them know that you're grateful or that you notice that they are making choices and doing it. So in conclusion, the question I would like you all to ask yourself is, how do I model being in the green zone? And then how can I support my children to be in the green zone as well? I get really excited about things and I throw a lot of ideas out and a lot of strategies. My goal is to not overwhelm you, but to have you leave tonight with like one or two things that you feel like, okay, I got this. What can I can try this. I can move forward with this. And so I hope that you will feel encouraged by this, and that if you need anything, you can reach out and email me, or I'm at GWA on Tuesdays and I can help support you through this. So thank you so much for coming. I am available. We're ending a little early, but I am available to stay for 10 more minutes and answer questions or talk through anything if anyone has any comments or questions.
I have a question. If you were to give like a 1 to 2 minute summary of what you taught tonight for me to pass on to my husband or other people, what would that be? What's like the quick
Well,
takeaway?
pretty much you're asking like, what's the takeaway? So I will open that up to the group. What is the takeaway from the group?
Modeling for your child, like being the example.
Thank you, Rachel. That's
Like
great.
I'm in the green zone, or I'm not in the green zone.
Yeah, you've got to model those not green zone moments for sure. We can't pretend like we're never in the green, that we're always in the green zone for sure.
Yeah, I love how you made the will too, along with your kids.
Yes.
So they could see like their feelings are normal.
Totally. I would really encourage you to make your own visual and to use it and to model it and really think about what helps me as well. Anyone else?
For me, it's putting a language to the zones and just teaching my kids, this is what we're experiencing. This is what's happening.
Thank you, Christine.
I have a question.
Yes, Nancy.
So if I start this with like Timmy,
Yes.
he already knows this verbiage. So this is going to be familiar to him, correct?
I have worked with Timmy, but again, we just started. So he's familiar with it. He's been introduced to it, but he doesn't know it. For instance, with Timmy, yes.
But maybe he can help me teach my other kids.
That would be awesome. What a great idea. You could, I mean, that just opens a world of possibilities, right? Of like, okay, put one kid in charge of the blue zone and the green zone, put one kid in charge of the yellow and the red, or, anyone in the family, and teach, the charades is hilarious. I have a whole YouTube playlist I could email you of like little funny clips from movies of where we watch and we say, oh, they're in the yellow zone or they're in the red zone. You start just noticing and talking and labeling it throughout your everyday life activity. And it's funny. I mean, my daughter we saw someone acting really out of control and she's like, oh, he was in the red zone. And I was like, yeah, he was in the red zone, And I feel like it's so great too, because it came out just, he was in the red zone. It wasn't like that guy was totally crazy and out of control, but I knew exactly what she was saying, and it was definitely more respectful. So Colette, I also really feel like when I teach this, I love the visual of the zones, and I have it up, and if I were to even just teach this principle at all, I feel like that visual speaks volumes. People get it so quickly because we're like, yeah, that makes sense to me, and I will give a personal example from today that I was, thinking about tonight, had it strong on my mind, needed to run to the grocery store. I ended up helping someone tonight with something I wasn't planning on. And I just was thinking of these zones so much. And I realized that like, even just like shopping in the grocery store and having my mask on, it gets me in the yellow zone. Like I get overstimulated and I can't connect with people, and then my kids are frustrated, or then I'm worried about getting home or whatever. And it just was interesting to have this concept on my mind to think, wow, I'm getting overstimulated because of the tactile input on, I can't breathe very well, and I'm getting in the yellow zone. And even though all it was me recognizing that and literally being like, I'm gonna take deep breaths because I don't want to be in the yellow zone right now. It just was fresh on my mind. So it just helped me in even a little situation like that, just to be like, control the controllables. Like I can control my energy so that my kids can, mirror me, not here, but mirror my neurons here. Any other questions or comments?
Katie, I just love so much the idea of your children being involved in creating the intervention and identifying what works, because I think if they own it, they're more likely to use it. And I think we make a big mistake as parents if we assume that what works for us is going to work for our kids. And, like I might say, take a walk because that works for me, but it might not work for my kids when they need to calm down. So I love that idea of involving them and having them help with the process of visuals. So thanks.
Oh yeah, Bryn. Yes. That's a really important piece, I feel like, because again, it goes back to them feeling like they are the one who chose it and they are the authority. You choose. It's up to you. And then mean it. And then really support them that, like my daughter, one of her options is that she can have a snack. And even on her picture, she has these little mints. And so a lot of times it'll be like dinner time or whatever, and she'll be like, I'm choosing a mint. And I'm like, great. Or gum, things that I'm like, well, now's not the best time for that. But I try to respect her and the things that we chose and she chose and say, okay, great. You go have that gum or that mint, even though I don't think it's the best time for that. I'll support you in that. Okay, team. Any last thoughts or questions? You can do it. I believe in you and support you, and you're moving forward with your kids. It's so awesome that you guys came, and you're doing so many wonderful things, and your kids will learn from you, and they will so appreciate this when they're parents and they look back. But probably not until then, but keep up the good work. Yes, Becky, question.
I just have to say, you guys are so lucky to have Katie. I miss her too much. We had her for 3.5 years. So you guys are so lucky. She is absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Becky.
She changed our family.
Thank you, Becky. Very sweet of you. I love all my OT families. Seriously, so much. Okay, we will log off. I will stay on a minute in case anyone has one more question for me, but thank you so much for coming, everybody. Seriously, thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Katie.
Hey, tell me who's talking because I can't see. Oh,
My
Mary.
name's Mary.
Hi, Mary.
I think I'm just curious, like how much, I don't know if I know how to, like how aware are teachers of these, like, the kind of the things that can be done in classrooms? Do you know? Does that question make sense, or?
So you're saying how to incorporate this as a teacher?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Are you a teacher?
How aware are the teachers at GWA? Do you think?
At incorporating it?
Yeah.
Well, the awesome thing about GWA is that they're so available for like when the team, like when we bring new things to the table compared to maybe some other schools I've been to where they're like, well, we already got good stuff going. So right now in particular, they are using the permission to feel, like particularly in the and Bryn, are you still on this? Are you still here?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Bryn is the social worker at the school, and they incorporate this in their individual work and in the classrooms. And Bryn, forever ago, we talked about using like the check-in with the popsicle sticks and getting all the teachers involved in that. Did that ever happen at GWA?
Yes. So Mary, I love your question because I get to sort of brag about how awesome GWA is. But
yes, please do.
So GWA has a check-in system where the kids check in. It depends on the classroom. They either do it daily or weekly and daily. There's a daily one that's popsicle sticks where they stick it into the zone they're in. And then the teacher kind of checks in with students who are in the red or yellow zone.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's the colors in the class. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they have a weekly check-in that's via their computer classes. So every student at GWA has a weekly digital check-in that appears when they log in and start their computer class that week. And that's a check-in that alerts us if a kid states that they are struggling or that they want to talk to a counselor. So there's a lot of that checking in with them, checking on what zone they're in. If they use the wellness center, the first thing they're asked once they're ready to kind of talk is, hey, what zone are you in? And they're kind of guided if they aren't able to answer, but most of them are really pretty versed on answering that. And then during the wellness center visit, they're encouraged to use tools that will help them get back to the green zone. And then they're asked at the end of their visit, okay, what zone are you feeling like you're in? So they are familiar with a lot of this verbiage. As far as the teachers go, that's still kind of a learning. We're still teaching and recognizing that some teachers aren't as familiar with the verbiage and the zones as we would like, but we are trying to get them there for sure. Most classrooms, however, I would say from K to 4 have a calming corner. So they do have like a tent or a calming corner. Most of them have a place that has been designated for kids to take a break or for kids to kind of go figure out how to get into the green zone. Most classrooms have a lot of these tools that you saw, like the bands, the chair bands or fidgets, or some sensory pieces. So there's a lot available and happening in a lot of the classrooms, but this is a great question to even pose to your child's teacher, like, hey, just, so I can encourage my child to use it. What do you have available? And what kind of things are you guys doing in the classroom? And what could I encourage my child to do to regulate those emotions or to take a break? So it's always totally great to have that open dialogue with your teacher about what they're doing to kind of support this kind of learning, the social emotional learning.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
I love it. Katie and Bryn.
Thank you, Mary. And are you a parent or a teacher or both?
I'm a parent.
Awesome. So nice to meet you.
With a parent of a wiggly son and a girl kindergartner. It's pretty calm.
Yeah. Isn't it fascinating how different they can be in the same household? Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming. Any other questions or comments? Thanks, Mary. Okay, Anjanae, I think we did it. And Bryn, yay.
Okay, thank you so much, Katie. That was awesome.
Oh,
that was so good, Katie. So good.
Thank you to both of you so much. Seriously, I will see you tomorrow.
Okay. Have a good night.
And hi, Miss LeBaron, if you're still there. Hi. Bye, guys.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.